It is 9:30, I think, on a Thursday night. Kind of. And you're tuned in to Chip Chat, maybe, here on Beltway Radio. I'm Chip. Welcome to Chip Chat.
Yo, it is popping. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, we don't have a bell.
We're back to the original.
Yeah, this is like our origin. So, hey, Tez, what's up?
What's up, buddy?
I am recovering from the Martian death flu. So,
you sound great.
Thanks. This is a vast improvement. I spent 4 days dead to the world, maybe 5. I don't know. I did manage to meet Tim Howard while I was there in Nashville. So hopefully I didn't give him the Martian death flu.
God.
He's fine. He's a World Cup athlete. He should be fine. Stuff bounces off of him.
How was that? I'm pretty sure that was intense.
I was intense. Not. I mean, if I was so sick that basically, like, we flew down.
Right.
I slept on the plane. We got there. I slept in the hotel. We got up stupid early in the morning to walk over there. I made it. We got over there. I just sort of like sat and like a bump on a pickle the whole time until it was time for the game. And then, then we won. So, and in the middle of that, I met Timmy and took a picture, and then we went back to the hotel, and I passed out for like 17 hours.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sucks, man.
It was rough. I got stuff to show you second half of the show. I'll show you the swag I got from the Premier League. But also, it was nice to find the other 6 or 7 Evertonians.
I was going to say that those events alone, just like because you get to meet other supporters of the club, and that's what it's about, right? Like,
yeah, well, for your people, there was no shortage of Gunners enthusiasts around.
We're back, but come one, come all,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There were some who you could tell like had suffered through the misery days though, because they're wearing their old like Sega Dreamcast jerseys.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're like, all right, you earned it. You can be jubilant now. Like
because I come into watching Arsenal like deep with my boys, probably like 2010, 2011. So like that's when I kind of started like, and it's funny because once I connected that the Sega sponsorship, I remember as a child always when I would see this like random, I'd be like, yo, how like that's crazy. They got Sega Dreamcast as on the kit. It used to blow me away. And I was like, and I always, that was like, I didn't know then though. I wasn't obviously like I was following NFL at 8, 9 and stuff, right? But I always remember that jersey because it would say Sega or would say Dreamcast on there, and then to like eventually become a supporter of that club, I was like, it was kind of felt destined. So now we had a rough Champions League for us. Champions League, hey, but Byron usually crushes us. So to leave on a draw, as they call it, we leave the magic carpet, which is a very interesting name.
To survive against Munich is good.
It's good. So we'll go
good.
And look, man, we go back and no angry Germans when we go back.
Also good.
Empty stadium. So that's going to be very interesting. But you could tell that the Giants of Germany, they are used to being there. The first 30 minutes, I was like, oh, they are. Yeah, we are scared. We haven't been here in a while. Not this group. This is like a new.
Yeah, they expect to win, and they know
exactly. Yeah, all those. I mean, Real Madrid. Obviously, that madness that was insane. I think they went 3-3. That Champions League is really crazy, and I hope one day soon you get to experience that.
We'll be in champion something next year.
No, because they keep knocking. Did they knock more points from you? Did they?
Yeah, they took more points.
God.
I'll tell you about that later because I do have something to show you from the event. But so anyway, we don't have a guest tonight also. So this is, as you can see, we're already on to like maximum DJing to ourselves.
It's like me and you just talking.
Well, at the event, there was this guy who was like the hype man whose job was to like sort of
Where's my crowd?
Yeah, and he's like, "Hi, I'm the host of the I think he was called the Cooligans." He's like,
Yes, there. Yeah, the
comedy
cool. Yes,
soccer podcast,
yes.
and nobody clapped, and nobody had heard
That's
of this,
crazy. No
and
one heard
nobody
the cool.
reacted.
I don't listen to it. I do know of them, and I've heard them give. I mean, very knowledgeable about the.
But I was
game.
like, what would a soccer comedy podcast sound like? And then I was like, oh yeah, sometimes we fall into that.
Exactly, and
We're not funny when we're talking about soccer.
They're two New Yorkers, I think, if I remember. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
they're two New
I don't
Yorkers,
know.
and they're from what I've heard. I could see it. Also, too, I mean, the kings of that, Men in Blazers.
Yeah, that's the thing is they're the real
king.
deal. Everybody else is just trying.
Yeah, I mean, they're the king. They're the kings of that. But the Cooligans are dope. Honestly, from what I've heard from them, they are dope. So,
well, the dude's a terrible comedian, so
okay.
I think we should put our collective hats in the ring for the next one of these as the second funniest soccer podcast that is not a soccer podcast. To gin up the crowd in between. I would have been if I wasn't dead sick, I would have like walked up there and roughed the mic from him and been like, "Listen, guy, you're not funny. Give me 5 minutes and I'll get this crowd laughing."
Look at you, but, the ever confident.
Tell me I'm wrong. All right. So anyway, we do have things to talk about though. Arizona's gone back in time somehow. They managed to without a DeLorean. We're going to talk about that. Rudy is an absolute fucking moron.
It's choking you up. It's choking you up. It's so bad.
It's my Rudy impression. You can see. And then Trump's lawyers are still stupid even without Rudy on the payroll. Not that he ever paid him.
Yeah, I was gonna say payroll.
So we've got that his trial just starting next week. So we're gonna talk about that. We got a bunch of other stuff. It's gonna be wild for the however long this episode is gonna take.
Right.
And since I'm already home, I don't see any reason to cut it short. So
hey, Brian was pulling the plug on this so fast. It's so much easier too. He doesn't have to do there he is.
Hello, I'm stuck in the studio here for a reason. So because I wanted to wait for you guys, but no, you pretty much dogged me, and now you want to stay longer.
No, that's terrible. He's the only one not at home. No, we're gonna try to finish on time.
We'll be out on time. We promise.
I didn't know what on time means.
11.
We'll do our best.
We'll see.
All right. Well, look. Do you have a word?
Yes, because we don't have time to waste, right?
Damn. Okay. I got a word.
You got a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So sit back, grab some
Tussin.
It's Theraflu time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps. You're muted.
Hey, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Broadway Radio and Beyond. I don't know how to work this rig anymore. It's been so long. Who are you, Tez?
Tez, you just told him. We're only 10 minutes late. It's okay.
I'm Chip. Look.
It's all right, man. You're fighting through.
I'm discombobulated. I wanted to show you the stuff that I got, from the trip. So speaking of trips, a lot of people were traveling this week because there was an eclipse.
Yes.
And some of them traveled all the way to heaven. And so
what happened? Was there a mass shooting event in some of these clips?
Oh, I'm sure there was. It's, it's the United States. That stuff just doesn't get reported anymore. So, but no, lots of people thought they were being raptured, there was one of my favorite things was people who had plotted, they were looking at this drawing. Not that any of them actually knew the path of the eclipse. They were just taking for granted what they saw on Facebook. This line that was plotting it, which the scientists.
Oh, you just gave me a new one to add to my American quotes. I gotta remember that one. They were. What did you say specifically? You said they just took whatever they saw on Facebook. What was the specific thing?
They didn't know which. They didn't plot the line of the eclipse themselves. They just took whatever was on Facebook.
They just took whatever was on Facebook. That is American quotes.
Yes. So there was this, all of these images going around with the path of the eclipse, and they're like, oh, look at the last one, and then this other one, and they're like, oh, it makes this letter, and it's like, hey, idiots, that's just orbital, like geometry. Like if you just plotted the path of the moon, that's what you'd get every time.
They don't even believe we went there.
I understand that, but they were perfectly willing to listen to the scientists to tell them exactly when to look up at the sky and burn their eyes, and somehow they believe those guys. So, I don't, and also then the number of Google searches in the path of the eclipse for why do my eyes hurt was very high, because stupid people keep not it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be a hard thing to remind people, hey, don't look at the sun.
We've lost our way. At a time, though, as a species, we respected the sun, and now we just look at it. That's crazy.
Isn't that remarkable that for the first 2 million years of humanity, we worshipped this thing. We understood its power. We knew that it gave us life, but that it could burn everything in its path. And now we have to explain to our children why there's a picture of the president in 2017 staring at and pointing at the sun. Yeah, that's a real photo that we have to explain to our kids why you can't do that.
No, I mean, we'll point to the climate refugee camp and we'll be like, this is how it all tracks. This is this is the path. What is it? This is the path of totality.
It's the path of totality according to whatever they found on Facebook. They didn't even know. All right. So speaking of traveling and stuff, with the eclipse this week, there was a list of cities that were in the path of totality. And what I did for list time this week was I made a list of famous people who are from these cities. And I blocked out what the city is on the script. So the trick here is we're going to say the person or people and see if Tez can sort of math out or reason out what city in the path of totality these people are from.
Okay.
You didn't look ahead, did you? I
didn't look ahead. All the things are blacked out.
Yeah.
Yes, I did not look ahead.
As you may know that you can highlight things.
I know. I didn't. But I didn't even that would take away from I know
exactly.
I know what's supposed to happen.
You figured it out. Okay, good.
I'm supposed to not get these.
Number one is your favorite person on the entire planet. One Mr. Alex Jones.
Oh God.
Who very, very definitely stared at the sun.
Of course. Look at my head hurts. I looked at the sun.
Right. The globalists don't want you to look at the sun.
Yeah.
But that's where the truth is.
True social. True frauds.
It's right. It's the line in the Bruce Springsteen song, right? Mama always told me not to look into the eyes of the sun, but Mama, that's where the fun is.
It's not.
It's not. Don't do that. Most of the time it's good to listen to the boss. Don't listen to the boss this time.
Not that time.
Okay, so where's your man Alex from?
I should know this. I know.
You should know this.
I feel like he went to. I feel like he went to school in Austin, Texas, but where is he actually from though? On there, because I know he was radicalized in like a local community college.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds right.
I know that's where he came up. In one of the Birch Society dudes radicalized him. I'm gonna say Austin, Texas, but I don't think this is correct.
All right, you're kind of close. The answer is Dallas.
Dallas. Oh,
Alex Jones.
Of course he's from Dallas.
Yes.
Of course he's from Dallas. That is
So
all right.
It very definitely tracks. If you're like, oh, where does the worst people in the world come from? It's Dallas. Yeah, that's natural.
But they get a bad rap from people in Texas.
Yeah,
like people like
in Texas hate people.
From
Dallas.
Right. People from other places in Texas be like, Dallas folk is different.
Yeah,
people from Houston have told them. Times.
Houston and Austin basically disrespect Dallas like nobody's business, and collectively the rest of the state hates Lubbock. But it's a college football thing. But it's like, oh my God, Dallas! Could you be any worse?
I'm like, oh my God, Dallas! That is a T-shirt.
You killed Kennedy. You gave us the goddamn Cowboys and Alex Jones all at once.
Bad news.
Dallas. Bad. Okay, this next one features two groups of people who definitely go well together. One is Fish, the famous jam band, run by one Mr. Trey Anastasio, and then Ted Bundy, who maybe also is in Fish by this picture.
Could easily be in Fish with this one. Is that look, is that turtleneck or mock neck? Is that
I don't know what the difference is there. How do you know the difference between a turtleneck and a mock turtleneck?
I feel like I thought the turtleneck is more like restrictive on it, and the mock neck is kind of like
just mocks the idea of the turtleneck.
Oh, there you go. Ding. Where are they from? Are they from
I'll give you a hint.
Do you hate this place?
No, but I don't like it. There's a guy who was famously the mayor from here for a long time.
Ooh, I almost want famously the mayor.
And now he gets his own dry cleaning.
God, why am I blanking on this right there? Oh God, it's Bernie Sanders?
Yes.
And in Vermont.
Huh?
Somewhere in Vermont then?
Yes, where in Vermont?
Ooh.
Think college town.
God, why don't I know this city in Vermont?
It's made of coats.
Oh, it is Bloomington. Is it
Burlington?
Burlington, excuse me.
Burlington.
Burlington is what it is. All right, cool. I was like, I wanted to say Bloomington over and over again. I was like, that's not correct.
He's British, folks. Just let it go. Never heard of Burlington Coat Factory?
Yeah, of course I have. It's more than just great coats.
Nice growing up with
more than just money. It's more than great coats. I've heard of that. Don't do that to me.
Grew up with so much money. Never been to Burlington
Coat Factory. It's more than great coats. What are you doing? No, get out of here.
All right.
Don't try to come for me like that. I'm gonna go find my American passport real quick, flash it around. DHL will be dropping off my British one Monday.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the next city here, this place has a lot of famous people from there. So I had to pick two people who I was sure you knew who they were.
Okay.
One is Ani DeFranco and Oral Hershiser. Now, one of these two, I'm sure you know who they are, which I'm guessing is Ani DeFranco.
That I've heard that name, not even ringing a bell.
All the white people know who Ani DeFranco is.
Well, Brian.
Yeah, Brian's a big fan. He's probably got several of her records.
That is also said, but I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, but Oral Hershiser, I'm sure you do remember who he is.
Yes.
Dodgers great starting pitcher, came in to pitch in relief to win the World Series in the 90s, and was a huge deal. Does some TV now and all around respected guy. So where are they from?
Mm.
And you've got Dallas and Burlington, so you can start to draw a line.
Oh, true. From where?
I picked two ends to start, and then
they're not. I'm gonna say Midwest City.
They might not like to be called the
Oh,
Midwest, but
God.
they might like to be called the Midwest. Hard to know.
Some Pennsylvania. That feels like very
You're
Pennsylvania.
getting closer.
All right.
Think a little north of that.
North of Pennsylvania, Buffalo.
Yes.
Okay.
Buffalo, New York.
All right, Buffalo, New York. I didn't know that.
So they'll call themselves Western New Yorkers.
They're Western New York,
but they often identify pretty strongly with the Midwest. So yeah.
Sorry, Buffalo.
Yeah. How would you supposed to know where Ani DeFranco is from?
No, but great.
All right, the next pair. Mark Summers of Double Dare fame.
Oh, Mark.
Yeah. And one of the greatest musicians, producers, singers, performers, and all-around music guys in the world, Babyface. Where are they both from?
Are they from Detroit?
Oh, close. I'm sure that they wish they were both from Detroit.
Oh, so they must be from Ohio.
Think Ohio, but even worse. Yeah, I know. It's worse than
Indiana?
Ohio. Yes. Now you're getting there.
Oh, God, you're setting me up. This is a setup. Thinking something worse. And I'm like, Indiana?
Yes. Where in Indiana?
Indianapolis?
That's right.
Oh, God. Wow.
Mark Summers and Babyface are from Indy, from the capital. They were born in race cars, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
One of them I would have suspected Gary, but anyways.
Yeah. That was near the path of totality.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Gary's really in Chicago, so
that's true.
All right, and then the last pair, this one I would hope you're going to get because these two guys are both very famous for people like us, and they're also I think it's well known at least where one of them is from, so at least for people like me. So we've got Brooks Robinson, and Derek Fisher. Both huge sports figures, obviously, in both of our lives.
Yes.
Seeing them either, do great things or, be a part of great things. Derek Fisher, obviously, we both lived through his illustrious NBA career and
yes, big shots.
Still doing stuff, coaching and all kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, the clutch shot of Derek Fisher is unrivaled.
I mean, that was insane. I can remember that going in. I was like, what just happened? You can't dethrone them. They're not there. They are a dynasty, like insane.
So where are they from?
Are they from St. Louis?
No, they're not from St. Louis, but that's not far off. Think a bordering state. One state down.
They from St. Louis, Missouri, Arkansas?
Yeah, and where in Arkansas?
Not Little Rock.
Oh yes, Little Rock.
Oh wow, okay, all right, cool. All right, I didn't do as bad as I thought to do.
There are two of several famous people from Little Rock, Arkansas, but two that I cared about. So that's why I put them. So there you go. Okay, so did you got to see the eclipse?
Yeah, it was. I was at work and I was working and someone came up and they're like, "Hey, are you gonna watch the eclipse?" And I was like, "Nah," because I didn't have the glasses. I didn't go to a library or anything like that. So I was like, "Nah, I'm good," because I'm not a crazy person. I'm not gonna look at this thing, right? So cool, man. I'll miss it. And they were like, "Oh, in the office, we have glasses." I was like, "Bet I'm gonna go and watch the eclipse." And I was there in my but then they used my picture to like internal communications, and I was there that day in Vault Arsenal kit. And I'm like, come on, man. This went out to many people. Many people are seeing this.
Many people are saying this guy's a Gunners fan.
Exactly. I was like, I'm seeing this there. But no, it was I think it's a marvel. I mean, what's very interesting is the eclipse haters. Like people just like, why would you want that
doesn't make sense.
It's so weird. Like, I mean, it's the one just seeing everybody outside and looking up like together. It was just like there's very few things I think that like tie us together as a species, and it's just that one there I think is one like because again it's like everybody, every other human, most of them is all like, yo, we about to look because it's just a marvel of just the planet, what it's doing, how it's moving, and just how I guess how small kind of we are as well too on this. Like, yeah, it's just I've always found those type of things to be like incredible, and I the community piece of it I thought was great. So like people kind of just like hating it to hate. Like, what do you woke up and you hate the eclipse? Also, I can only imagine for like humans like 100,000 years. Like I can only imagine when this happens and people being like, "Yo, what? It just went dark." I can't.
That's. I mean, you can see how the myths arise.
Yes, there you go.
You
exactly.
don't understand what you're seeing, and this happens. It's utterly terrifying. But there's a flip side to that, which is the first time somebody correctly predicted an eclipse. That had to have been a magical feeling for that group, which probably happened, hundreds of times throughout human history all over the world. But like that understanding, okay, I get it. I see how we're moving in space. I see how these other things are moving in space. I can calculate how they move, and I got it right.
Yeah.
That had to feel to that group of humans like becoming a god.
I can't even imagine what the sky looks like at that time as well, too. Because imagine like there's no light pollution. Is that like just what the sky might look
you would have seen the stars. I mean,
exactly.
That's the thing is that the sun would have gone black and you would have seen the stars. And people really kind of say like, oh, well, it had to be aliens. How could they figure out all this stuff? It's like, well, okay, look, if you've got literally infinite amount of time,
exactly,
you've got so much time that you wake up on Monday and your job is to figure out what's up with the stars and which way they're all pointing. And you do this every day for like 35 years, you're going to figure it out. Even if you have to like brute force math all of this, you will figure this out.
Yeah, it's...
But the first time some human being correctly predicted an eclipse that wouldn't happen for 10, 15, 20 years from then, and said, this is going to happen 20 years from now, and it's going to happen on this date, and it did. They must have looked at that person like they were like a sorcerer.
Right, but that's the whole reason why, again, the dominance of us and why there's so many of us, because someone's able to figure that out, but then also communicate that to a bunch of other
people.
Tell
everybody else to be ready to look at it.
And then when it happens, the buy-in of cooperate, like, yo, whoever told us this, well, why wouldn't I listen to everything else?
Right. And what system of math did you use to figure that out? Can we learn that? That? Can we replicate that? That's why we beat the saber-toothed tigers, stupid tigers.
Yes, exactly.
They don't understand eclipses.
Exactly.
It's and literally the only reason.
Hey, yo, Chip, I seen the saber-toothed tiger. It usually comes down here on this day, however they're tracking the days. I wouldn't go down there, but if we hide out here, maybe we can ambush it with these tools I got, and trophy, throw it up on the wall.
Yeah. Hey, all the rage these days.
Again, that's why I always have faith in people, just in general. I know most people don't, but actually people are looking in the sun now. Sorry, I forgot. I forgot. we're not doing the math on the sun anymore. We're just
proclaiming their rapture on Facebook. So great.
Yeah. Anyways,
okay.
That was a good list time.
That was pretty good. All right. You want to take a quick break before we get into some of the heavier news?
I know. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You are listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
I think we might be wrong about all of it. Fact, it's been proven. Keeps coming down to this shitty little interface that we're using. The very edges of our knowing's just the tiny tip that's showing, but we're so waked out, yeah, we're so devout to this waking train. What's playing on the screen? And you just never know, do you, baby roll? It's all absurd. But even you maintain timing is everything when you're stepping off a curb. And if you think this life is your only life, you're a fool. No spirit can't be stopped, no matter who gives birth to who. No spirit won't be stopped, no matter who gives birth to who. The path of least suffering leaves the best trail. The path of least suffering.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat. Here on Story Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping, y'all?
That was a interesting song there, Brian. That was I don't know who that was, but we'll find out in the chat.
You don't know who that was?
Oh, is it Anya Franco?
Yeah.
Okay. I told you Brian had all her records.
That is it. Okay, look at that.
I didn't.
A
hear
real
nothing,
producer.
I was actually
a real producer right there.
I was trying.
That is a real producer. You deserve money.
Yeah, I do.
Don't tell him that. You don't have any of that.
Or peppercorns.
I'm still working on that.
Still
Trump hasn't paid.
Yeah, you know.
All right. So now we've come to the part of the show that's called the rundown. This is where I tell you about some stuff that's going on in the news. Ding! I could still do it. If we were professionals, it would sound a little something like this. Yeah. All right. This is it's maximum Tez.
Wait, Radio and Beyond in Washington, D.C. I'm J. Scott Smith, and this is the part of the hour where I tell you some stuff that's going on in the news.
Thanks, Jay.
I will listen back just to hear you cough after the.
All bad. It's terrible.
Yeah,
I'm not proud of this episode. I'm usually not proud of most of our episodes, but I'm specifically not proud of this one.
This is the one you submit, like when people are like, "Hey, they're gonna draft us, they're gonna buy us out, buy it out, and put us on big time." You put all the great episodes we've ever did, and then this is the last one you put on there, just as the joke,
right? And then yeah, guys are really real. Okay, I guess we'll put them on. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about it. So, Arizona is a state. It only became a state apparently in 1912. I did not know that. I thought it was a bit older, but we're still making states in the 1900s. And they do have a Supreme Court. They have a weird Supreme Court where the governor appoints the members of the Supreme Court, and then they have to run for re-election to stay in their seats like forever after that. So they have to run 2 years after they're appointed, and then every 6 years or something after that for as long as they serve.
That's decisions you making when it's too hot. That's when people. That's the convention that the convention was too hot that day, and people weren't making it right.
I mean, granted, look, it's better than a lifetime appointment. There's theoretically a way to remove people if they're kind of fucking up or whatever. But anyway, so here they are fucking up. Arizona passed a law after the fall of Roe, creating a 15-week ban on abortion. And then they said, but make sure that nobody thinks that this law supersedes any previous law also about abortion. And so then everybody's like, why would that wording be in that law? That seems a little strange. Until people realize there's this law from 1864, from when Arizona was a territory,
right,
banning abortion with the exception of for the safety of the mother. No exception for rape or incest, no exception for like health of the mother, just only the life. And it is this crazy thing. But the Supreme Court of Arizona decided that that's now the law in Arizona. They've got basically 2 weeks to kind of sort this out. And, as we saw what happened in Florida, where a sort of similar decision happened, also there was a push to get an amendment on the ballot. That is also going forward in Arizona. Yeah. They've got 500 and some odd thousand signatures. They only need 400 and some odd thousand signatures, and they're still collecting them before this gets on the ballot. So it's going to get on the ballot. From a political perspective, this is a bit of a gift to the Democrats.
It's very interesting that they keep. I mean, even their leading, like the Republican nominee knows, like he's a stupid man, but he knows that you can't win elections this way. We got to win elections. He knows that. He knows
it, but he's not the only one that knows that. All of these other Republicans who had previously praised this 1864 law, who had said that they wanted to reinstate it, who wanted a total ban on abortion, when this came down, people like Carrie Lake, for example,
right,
are modulating and saying, no, we want the 15-week ban. We never really wanted this. We think this is too draconian, and here's Trump out here saying like, look, this should be up to the states. I like how he said it too. He was like, it should be up to the voters or the legislators, or in some cases, both. You don't know how those things work. We get it, but
no. But that is it's interesting because again, he's like, it should be up to the voters. But hey, look, if we gotta go find some votes somewhere, we got to get people to lie and do stuff. It could be up to the But yes, he doesn't understand how.
It's every single time, right? It's almost becoming like a playbook, right? We see this every time that they've caught the car. They don't know what to do with it. We saw it in Kansas. We saw it in Kentucky. We saw it in Michigan. We saw it in Florida. We're seeing it in Arizona. We're going to see it everywhere else. That every time we see it in Oklahoma.
Yeah, right.
Missouri, you've got places where Republicans campaign on ending access to abortion, and when they finally get it, the electorate doesn't like that. And they know it. They never wanted to win this. And this is where you saw this weird rift between Pence and Trump happen, where Pence came out and he said that Trump was equivocating on his support for being pro-life, and how can he do that? And it shows that he was never really pro-life in the first place. Yeah. And Trump just called Pence a loser for, being, whatever.
My vice president.
Yeah.
My loser, though. No, I mean, there's so many. I think this is interesting on a variety of areas, right? We'll take the Pence piece there. I think he has the ability to cause evangelicals to stay home. I think it's very interesting. As I look at this, because from the point of catching the car, I think the evangelicals look at this a lot, that voting block, and they say, well, no, we didn't catch the car. We need to go now and ban this nationwide. We just started.
Right.
And Trump understands that, that can't win the election. But I think the evangelical vote looks at him and is like, well, I mean, and we know how wishy-washy they are. We know how they'll throw them, but because now he is not in their camp really anymore. If you think of if they finalizing that what they really want, which is a national ban, right? And he's not for that. It doesn't. He controls his party, and his party's not for that. So Pence's comments there is really interesting. I also wonder, as the laws I know was created as a territory, Lincoln sends judges in there to kind of go ahead and craft the territory together, but that state has a state constitution. So like regardless, right? If you like trying to even invoke this seems really crazy because you're talking about a territory versus the state, and like the state, if it's not already in the state's constitution, I haven't obviously read through Arizona state constitution, but if it's not there, then it has to obviously go to a ballot. And we know when it goes to the ballot, this is a losing issue. We've seen it 3 times before. I don't see, it's very odd that this, but I think the individuals who put these forward are kind of in that evangelical boat where it's like, nah, I'm trying to close the deal on this. Like I'm trying to, and that's how I see it.
A couple of things about that. One, it does supersede. It doesn't have to go to a vote. If there wasn't somebody trying to put a ballot initiative on the ballot in November to make an amendment to the Arizona state constitution, there would not be any referendum going on at all. Right. This would just be that. That's what the court ruled. Lots of states used to be territories. Lots of them had, original founding documents that eventually sort of get incorporated into what becomes the constitution of that state, whatever. But to your question about evangelicals, I think I'm not sure about that. I think you might be right, because the original deal they made was, we will put up with this loutish, boorish, completely unchristian pig of a man if he'll get us the court justices and end Roe. And he delivered that. And so like now maybe they do just want to finish the deal, and maybe they really did believe in that, and they were using him as much as he was using them. That's possible. But I think that Pence doesn't have the sway over the evangelical community that you might think that he does, because I think now to be that kind of white evangelical carries with it the identity of Trumpista more than it carries with it the identity of ending abortion. And I think these people are more identified together as Trump supporters than they are as people who believe in Jesus.
I think, right, but I think at one point there was the people who believed in Jesus and they were, again, a Trump supporter. But I think,
or hold your nose and vote for Trump because they wanted to get their thing across the line.
They believe in that. They believe in canceling abortion so much that him coming out against that, I think that I don't think those
people exist anymore.
I think
those people,
yes, they do.
They got close enough to Trump. They got sucked into that, and so now they're more concerned with their identity as Trump supporters than they are with their identity as ending abortion. I believe that. I think
you're telling me Trump. They think Trump is bigger than Jesus.
Yes,
no
that's
way.
Exactly right. I think that the
that's a terrible phrase. You think Trump is bigger than
Jesus? That is the thing, because they do talk about him like he's Jesus. They talk about him like he's a Messiah. They talk about him like he's a savior. I think it's clear if you look at some of these books about the history of the idea of evangelicals getting into politics at all, and the abortion issue, which never really was an evangelical issue, it was a Catholic issue.
Exactly, it was a Catholic issue.
If you look at that, there is a clear attempt by the right-wing political movement to co-opt evangelicalism into right-wing politics, and they did it by attaching it to this abortion issue. And so if you think that the evangelicals ever believed in abortion, you're wrong. The abortion issue was just a way to get them to vote for white supremacists.
Right.
And if you believe that they do believe in that abortion thing, then you think, okay, well, then they're going to follow this sociological extension. But I don't think that they really do care that much about that. I think they are now much more focused on maintaining a white supremacist Christian ethno-national nation state than they are in abortion or anything otherwise. They will totally be fine because all of them have abortions. All of them have abortions, pay for abortions, drive people to their abortions, lie about their abortions. What are the two things that Baptists don't recognize? The transubstantiation of Jesus and each other in a liquor store. They're all just lying about their faith all the time. There's no such thing as an honest evangelical Christian because there isn't such a thing. It's all just a political movement disguised as a religion. And so now they got their thing and they don't know what to do with it because it turns out it's a losing issue. It was great for them when they couldn't win.
Yeah.
And now they've got it. They don't know what to do. It doesn't work anymore.
I think enough of them will. I think folks. I still think religion in this nation specifically drives people, and
the smaller and smaller fraction.
It's smaller and smaller fraction, but yeah, I don't see like. Also, the deal was made with him, right? They got their justices, but I just don't look at them in the sense of thinking that, oh, it's over there. No, we still need something to drive it. They don't, again, that was just the first piece. That was the first piece to let the states choose of it. And I don't know. You could be right on that one there, but I don't know. I see them staying home. I think this is a total blunder. And I think that's why Trump.
I don't think it makes them stay home. I think it actually makes people switch. I mean, it's true that people like Pence are true believers and they want a national ban on abortion and they want it at all costs. And they don't care how many women have to die for that. Because that's their real goal. But I think that, it is often perplexing how many women are involved in the anti-choice movement and how many women are involved in right-wing, hardcore evangelical Republican politics, knowing that the end result of their efforts is them trapped.
Some would say that's influenced by the church.
Yeah, well, but they're the ones active in the church. Like it's all part of this. It's like, why are these people, why are the trees voting for the axes? And
I mean, but we've seen that too. I mean, we've seen that through women's voting rights, right, and things of that nature. Like there was a lot of women that were out, so that's not new in not even new.
But the evangelicals will tell you that if they want a Christian state and they let women vote, they won't have a Christian state. Yeah. So they want women out of the political process, and yet there's so many of them involved in creating that scenario that will ultimately lead to them being removed from the process and trapped as, vessels or whatever the hell the word that they use for them.
Let's refocus this to Arizona, right? I mean, these are L's that are coming and maybe this is 2016 all over again. And we don't, but no, there's been the referendum on this is
Biden won Arizona by 11,000 votes. There's 506,000 people who have gone out and signed this referendum and growing. Many of which couldn't vote before because they were too young. Right. Many of which are now single issue motivated voters because their very lives depend on this. People who might have stayed home previously.
Not this time.
This is a game changer. It's a gift to us. It means that a bunch of women are going to have to suffer, die. Children are going to be injured or worse between now and election day. But when the books are written, 10 years from now, the turning point is going to be seen as the Dobbs decision that gave Democrats a generational voting edge.
I think so. I mean, yeah, and why I think, and rightfully so, we should be nervous about another Trump term. But I think, again, when we look back on this, it's going to look more. We'll almost look back and well, duh, of course, but also too, most of us understand what 2015 into 2016 looked like and how we let the guard down and how people. I mean, that, but also too. Folks who are upset ever that we got here, I give nasty looks to people in 2016 who are he's just an unlikable person. I can't vote. What? We lost. We lost. We lost.
We're here again, though. People are talking about Biden in ways that don't make any sense, and it's again, you can't get it. You're not going to get it perfect, but if you ever want to get a chance to get it perfect, you got to vote for this guy because the alternative is the end of elections altogether.
Play play the game, right? If you're not, even if you say that, if you can look at him and you can't look at him to vote for him, the person or whatever, it's all right, well, I'm voting to protect those the seat of Sonia Sotomayor, or the seat, or flipping the seat of Clarence Thomas, or flipping the seat of I don't know who the other one probably leave on. I mean, maybe Roberts. I don't know.
Alito, maybe Roberts.
Maybe.
I think if Biden wins, Roberts might feel safe to go ahead and retire. He wants out.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. He'd be ostracized forever, though.
Yeah, but he'd write 1 million books and make a ton of money.
He's gonna make all of them. They're always gonna make money.
Speaking of making money, remember when the bridge fell down?
Yeah.
And remember how we said on this very show, I want to see who it is that's going to vote against rebuilding this bridge. Well, it didn't take but 2 weeks for it to come around. Of course, it's our friends, the House Freedom Caucus.
Oh, the 41 is 41 of them, right? I think I looked this up.
The circular firing squad, as they're known on the Hill. These idiots are talking about how they don't want to give any federal funds to rebuild the Key Bridge and get the channel cleared out. They want to make sure there's cuts in other places. They think that this is not necessary. They want to mandate a liquefied natural gas port to be built if you're going to rebuild the bridge. What does that have to do with anything, you fucking idiots? Number one. Number two, I know where we can cut it. All your salaries, all of the money that goes to your districts. I don't care that your people are already poor and you live in recipient districts, or they don't get, I mean, they're already on the federal dole. Cut them off. You believe in that so much, cut them off. Run on that. Run on that you cut your food stamps off for your people because you didn't want to pay for the bridge. They want to exhaust the available funds. The Highway Trust Fund's got $890 million in it. It's already completely gassed. We need $2.3 billion to rebuild this bridge. And there's already other projects that are in line ahead of it. So what is going on here? And one of these people is Andy Harris, who lives on the Eastern Shore.
I think this puts 41 of these members, right? Because I'm just trying to think of like the vote itself. And can you, God, they're gonna put Speaker Johnson in the rigmarole again. Like for this one, it's gonna be another one. It's gonna be another one of those votes. But because I know there should be enough Republican support for this, right? Even outside
there is, and it'll probably get through. But what we're talking about here is this thing that always happens: is that Republicans want to vote against things that they want to pass. They need these things to pass because they want the governing of the country to happen, but they want to vote against it so they can go home and say that they voted against it, or alternatively take credit for the money when the thing does get rebuilt or shows up in their district or whatever. But it is about signaling who you are.
Yeah. But this is the Denny Green thing right here. These ones here, we know
who they are. We know they are who we thought they were. Yeah,
exactly.
Bob Good of Virginia is not. He is not good, and he is not of Virginia. And if he wants to vote against rebuilding the Key Bridge that connects 95 from across Baltimore, like what are we even talking about? What? This isn't a negotiation. There's no sweetening the deal here. There's no earmark. There's no pork barrel, whatever, that's gonna like buy these guys off. It's good.
I don't know. I mean, it just goes back. I thought some of these things were just kind of simple and normal when it comes to running.
You did say that, and I told you they're not.
Yeah, and because again, like I always like, when did people start saying, "Hey, forget this money"? All right, we're not gonna get this. It's like the Port of Baltimore doesn't just help like Baltimore, like it helps the whole country.
Right.
It's not like I'm pretty sure but it doesn't matter because if you get those facts, people will just dilute them more.
Do you think Matt Gaetz understands how ports work? Do you think MTG has any idea what Baltimore is?
Like
he's never heard of it, except that it's a scary place in The Wire.
That's right. I don't know. I'm just happy that I feel confident enough that there's enough votes to get this passed, and let these people sit where they're at, and they'll sit on that side. I mean, they're probably in safe districts where they don't really have to I'd be interested to see who's in anything that's competitive, and these individuals will continue to be there.
Well, one of the funny things is that DC does border Maryland, right?
Right. Come on now.
So
Right.
these people have to drive. Theoretically, they will occasionally cross the Maryland state line out of the district or wherever. I mean, we drive around here, you know that we have these borders that don't really mean anything. And we cross between Virginia and the district and Maryland all the time as if it's nothing, right? So what would happen if, like, after the funding gets passed, but there was this group of people who voted against it? And Governor Moore, I don't know, happened to have
told
the state police get a list of who these people are, where they might be traveling, and just, escort them nicely, to a few traffic stops every time they cross into the free state.
No way in hell there, because this is where your benevolent dictatorship goes completely awry. Because I see where you're going with this, but no, that is not how we weaponize state law, like the state law enforcement.
I'm not talking about weaponizing. I'm talking about maintaining their safety. If they're going over the speed limit, we should make sure they're safe. Or if they've got a tail light that's a little dim, we should make sure that they're safe.
As empathetic as I am to like this being flipped on these specific set of folks, no, not at all.
I'm also in favor of Muriel cutting off water to certain neighborhoods, but whatever. Speaking of cutting things off, OJ's dead. So
I left this one alone. I mean, I leave all these things alone. I'm not really a big RIP person online type thing. Like, he was dead. If that's how other people grieve, I get it. But like, woo! I said once I saw this drop, I guess early. I got Bleacher Report for me dropped this early, like maybe like 10 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, but I thought it was fake.
Yeah, I know. When it came through, I did as well too. And I was just like, God, OJ Simpson, man, that is like, I'm trying to find the exact quote I had on there, but I think it was something attuned to like what an American story, like a very unique American story, like where he comes from, like these specific projects out of San Francisco, and like people I don't even can even connect that sometimes to think of like what that. Again, he came out of a rough area, and he like. A person who had everything in a sense, right? And who had like that American gleam, right?
The story of OJ up until that point was like a movie.
The Hertz commercial?
Yeah.
Like
the Hertz commercial.
The Hertz commercial is like I don't you have
to get to that plane.
Like, it's right in the gleam. He had the man like it did almost feel like, and y'all probably attacked me for this one, but like the only person I think after that, like a black person in this country who did that out of sports, it felt like magic. Like Strahan does that. He's yeah, exactly.
Strahan is that now. Strahan started as a football player, and he's now everything to everybody, right?
Yeah, like
Shaq is that.
Shaq is but like. People don't, and again, even OJ is just.
But OJ was the model.
He is the model of that. Like, he's before my time, but I can easily look at that, and I do think one of the best things ESPN has ever done is that 10-part series or whatever it is. I think it's Ezra Edelman who did that. Like, I felt that was one of the craziest things I've ever watched. It's very long, but that is a masterpiece. Like. OJ, I think it's called OJ Made in America, maybe. I think that might be it. I think that's the title.
Brian is a contemporary of OJ's.
Yes, I would love to hear Brian.
Right around the same time. OJ died actually this week at age 76, so Brian's a little bit older.
And you have a love for the same type of,
So
I saw his 2003 yard, third yard run. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you watch the footage of OJ, there's nothing like it. It's just nothing like it. The way that he split defenses in half it's just nothing like it.
Yeah.
In Buffalo?
In Buffalo.
OJ is so beloved in Buffalo that when I was there like 6 or 7 years ago, there were still a lot of people rocking OJ Simpson jerseys. And he was still in prison, I think, at that time, or maybe had just gotten back out.
I think, but what was this during the Bills' big run?
It was in the Tyrod era, so it's a little before that, I guess.
So, but yeah, OJ is before the trial of the century. I mean, he was, like you said, he was everywhere. He was Shaq before Shaq. He had commercials. He was on NBC Sports. He had the Naked Gun series. He was doing a lot. And I mean, it was, in a way, it was kind of quiet. It wasn't like, nowadays where you have social media probably expanding his celebrityism, but pretty much, at the time he was just everywhere, but in a very subtle way. It was just like, especially after his career. So it would make sense that, his transition would be like that. And I mean, he was a good analyst. I mean, he was bad. And I think that, he was very entertaining, charismatic, which a lot of people, I think that's the reason why he probably got out of this, the murder trial that,
No, black people were sick and tired, and the black people in that jury said, not today. They said, we're going to take, that's what I heard. That black lady in the documentary was like, nah.
But again, I think the later years, I really think, even after the trial, I just felt like, it was like that fallen, hero that everyone, put him on a pedestal. And it's sort of like, I don't think it humbled him. That's the one.
No.
Humble OJ.
It just did it in his vocabulary.
The oxymoron. Humble OJ. So he's made his book title?
Now he thinks he's bulletproof, and he did, because he went out and he robbed somebody to get his shit back. And then he ended up going to prison for it. But then he said, he's making these videos on Twitter. Hi, yours truly here.
Yours truly. Hey, world, yours truly. Yo, he's still had it. Those. He was holding up this yours truly here, and then just giving random opinions on stuff. And like, if we think about, I think what I'll remember for him is his final act. That after that trial, I remember where I was, like that trial ending. I can remember where I was, and I was kind of leaving school, and like people driving, like, OJ not guilty, and like continue driving down the street.
OJ wheeled TVs into our school, into our classrooms for us to see the final verdict. Yeah.
The justice system at work.
That was not what they were showing us.
But I mean, even beyond the trial, and like even to think of his final act, like with Cameron and Mace now, like he's on, like he came out and people wanted to hear from OJ. Like that is it, because he's captured the imagination of many generations. It's very interesting. He's a very unique person. And like, he did that through football. He did that through murder. Like, he did that through, like, he did it. He put a lens on specifically like Los Angeles and like what, like the Black experience in America. And like, where like a lot of folks would say like, oh, well, like, again, I'm not Black. I'm OJ. Like way prior to like even like a Tiger Woods or folks who've given him like shit for kind of, again, removing themselves from the community, right? And then when it's time, you then are like, you ask the community to embrace you. And he's one of those stories, like, it's very like the community embraced him in a way that was almost like, like, well, you thought he'd be dead to rights conviction on there. No, like and like, again, all the stories around it, like, right, whether it's Johnny Cochran, right? Like he's just a unique figure that I think we'll never really have someone.
The outcome of the OJ trial has such a reverberation through the rest of our lives in ways that you'll never be able to fully explain.
Mm-hmm.
The word Johnny Cochran now means lawyer. Right. I'm going to get Johnny Cochran and sue you. Like, who do you think you are? Johnny Cochran? Like, Johnny Cochran becomes the word for lawyer. If it weren't for the OJ trial, there would be no Kardashians.
Yeah, right? Correct.
That's all of that.
Yes.
If it weren't for the OJ trial, a lot of white people would never understand the level of racism within the LAPD. They never would have figured out, and they never would have been told this story. All of that.
I disagree on that.
What do you say for?
They wouldn't have believed it. Let me say that.
You're going to say because of what?
Rodney King.
Rodney King.
I mean,
yeah. So But those two things are two halves of the same thing, right? Because
the thing is, let's say this: when you had the Rodney King was before OJ,
Yeah,
and I think, I think it was like 2 years after.
92 and then 94,
yeah. So around that time, so I think by that time, I think for Black Americans, it was kind of like, okay, it got another one of us, unpopular one of us, and we ain't, no, he didn't do this. There's no way, blah 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 blah. I mean, all the rhetoric and all that stuff that was talked about through this trial was just manifold. It's just the only thing that I felt disheartening of how this trial was transpiring was the fact that it was more of a spectacle. It wasn't really like something you saw like normal trials would be. Because like I said, it was marketed as the trial of the century. And I felt like I just, there's been other trials that are even bigger than that one.
It birthed court TV.
Yeah,
there wouldn't be court TV.
It gave us a lot of things that pretty much America did and did not want.
It opened this box that we can't close again. It opened a box we couldn't close again. It gave us this wall-to-wall courtroom television.
Right.
It became the model that we all expect now. Any kind of high-profile trial, we want to be in the courtroom. They've got stuff, and the Trump trials are about to happen right now. The very format by which those are being covered was defined during the OJ trial.
But like I said, that's the thing I felt like, mind you, maybe because I'm spoiled of watching Law and Order since back in 1927, and
when it was a radio drama.
Yeah, when it was a radio show, and
Law and Order.
The definition and the prestige and in the presence of a lawyer is supposed to be not all out there. I mean, Johnny Cochran wasn't all out there, but somehow when it came to the prosecution and their way they were, doing their jobs, it became a spectacle. It became a show.
The prosecution was terrible.
Right.
They were the worst. Right. You always hear a lot about the American, the law is an ass, man. Like ass in the general, like a donkey almost. Like law is crazy in this country, right? And what you need to do to prove people, right? And the presumption of innocence is it's very interesting here. And I've never seen a group of professionals butcher something so that should have been you should have been able to convict him.
There were so many times where if they had just taken a couple more minutes to pre-read something or check a box or whatever, it is obvious that the prosecution fumbled this.
And that's where it comes down to. I also think it's unique. I think again, his story in Black America is just because it showed it's one of those times where it's almost everyone rallied behind no matter what you felt about it, no matter what you thought with how you would look at the case and this seems to be who else kind of did whatever, right? But it was all right, we'll prove it, right? I mean, we look at some of the other cases, when it flips on the other hand, where you have a jury, I hate to bring this up, but something like an Emmett Till, right? Where people just walk away, right? And why do they walk away? Because a group of their own said, hey, we stand in pat, and this is what happened. They let people walk. And I think that was one of the few times shocking to white America where it was oh, wow.
This could go the other way.
This could go the other way. Look.
Right.
And it sounds bad because these are two people who are dead, right? Right? These are
I don't know
Ron
anybody
Goldman and Nicole Simpson are dead. Yeah, those people are dead.
I don't know anybody who thinks OJ didn't actually do it, but people will quibble about whether the prosecution, it was their burden to prove it and they didn't do a good job of proving it. And so that's why the jury acquitted versus some people who say that jury was going to acquit him no matter what they did. If they could have presented an ironclad case, and Black jurors were just not going to let this happen. And this was, it kind of needed to happen this way because white, like you said, white people had to understand that their lock on using juries as a system to get away with crimes was no longer their lock alone. And now we have to actually all play by the same set of rules.
Right. And it is just sad again because that 2 people have to lose their life. I mean, I think this is a CTE story, personally.
That too.
I think this is a CTE story, if we'll be honest. I'd be very interesting if I know a lot of ex-football players' brains kind of get donated. I'd be very interested to see.
I'd be quite curious. I think that would be the right thing to do for his family is to know, because one of the things that we learned through all this is that OJ had a lot of anger issues, which none of us, of course, saw, right? We always saw him as the perfect gentleman. He was always so kind and so gracious and so sweet to everybody. But behind closed doors, he had these anger issues. And what we know now about CTE and the way that all this continual impact, and we're talking about a guy who started playing football back when helmets were, really rudimentary. It's
what
you do got to wonder, but it also speaks to how incredible he was.
Yes,
that a guy who got his head bashed in for that long, who might have been such an angry person that he went off and killed 2 people, was also that smart, that charming, that good at explaining things. I mean, imagine if he hadn't had his head bashed in, he would have won a Nobel Prize or something like that. Right. The guy's a genius.
Yeah, and like the conditions that got him to football, and like
he's always so great that he could use a few, concussions and just to make him into like a regular person like the rest of us.
Yeah, but also crazy. Like, I mean, again, ego driven enough to run up in that room in Las Vegas and like, what?
Give me my shit back.
No, it's again a unique American story that I encourage everybody. It's so long. I think it's like 10 hours, but that OJ Simpson on ESPN to 30 for 30. It's insane. Like, it's just mind boggling of like his life. And that trial is obviously a huge part of it. One of the defense attorneys, Carl Douglas, plays a huge role in that. Like, a great character of that. There's just lots of characters. And can we just say, like, what was his man? AC, homeboy Hall of Fame, yo.
Yeah,
homeboy Hall of Fame. Yo.
Well, and Kato Kalin.
Yeah, Kato Kalin too. Yeah,
homeboy Hall of Fame there too.
Homeboy Hall of Fame, yo. Like
Kato Kalin.
OJ Simpson, another bad person. I'd probably end up playing golf with.
Oh yeah, you would. Speaking of bad
people, yours truly.
Speaking of bad people you might want to play golf with, we'll skip a break to be merciful to Brian and go right to Israel updates, the fun stuff.
I'm out.
All right, so I must be nice, Brian.
That's all right, exactly.
All right, so a couple of things happened that are worth talking about. One is that Joey B has had several phone calls with BB, and seems to have kind of gotten through to him on a couple of issues. So we talked about this a bit a couple weeks ago, where we mentioned that Netanyahu's got a problem where the ultra-Orthodox now are probably going to have to get drafted. That's unpopular for the war. He is vastly unpopular. The entire Israeli society agrees that they want to finish off Hamas and bring the hostages back. But the other thing that they all agree on is they don't want Benjamin Netanyahu in charge anymore.
Right.
They don't like him. They blame him for what happened on October 7th. He did not protect the people. They're now worried that he's about to get them into a wider conflict with Iran, because the Israelis went and struck an Iranian consulate in Syria. The Iranians are threatening a retaliatory response if the attack comes from Iranian soil. The Israelis are going to regard that as an attack from Iran on them, and they're going to retaliate accordingly. It's never good.
It's never good. I think Iran has to say this currently there. I think they're wise enough right now to be like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I think it's very scary that the one aggressor here at this point, like, outside of Hamas, is like Israel, to the point. And it's like, hey, like, I don't think that region isn't ready for that type of conflict. And I know there's a lot of kind of groups that are like outside the purview of like these governments, right? So it could pop off at any time. But yeah, and also another piece you mentioned too, the Constitution piece with BB as well, right?
So
prior to all of this.
We have to get to, there's a lot of things. All right, so the first thing is that Joey B had an interview with the Spanish language broadcaster Univision, and he said that
very smart to do this.
He did it in Spanish, and he did it in English, but hoping that it's people are strategic. Of course, Joe Biden is dumb, hiding in a basement somewhere, and he's too old and doddering. But he's also a mastermind and destroying everything and figuring out how to control the world with his globalism. So, using his globalism, he remembered that if he wanted to say something that he needed communicated, but he didn't necessarily want it to happen quite in real time, the way to do it is in English on a Spanish language TV station about a country that mostly speaks English and Hebrew.
I'm telling you, that's masterful politics. I don't care what anybody says.
It's like the Friday news dump. It's like, you gotta say something, you gotta release something, but there's a way to do it where nobody's gonna see it, right?
Right.
This is the opposite of that. It's a slow burn. It's gonna get there. So anyway, what he said, what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing is a mistake. He called his the way that he's prosecuting the war a mistake. And this is on the heels of Jose Andres's people getting targeted by the IDF and blown up. Biden and Netanyahu have had several phone calls since then. Blinken's been on the phone nonstop. They've had several visits here. Benny Gantz is now talking openly about how we really need to have a new election, and
he will surely win.
And there's all of those things that are going on, right? And then, like we said, that his government is on the edge of falling apart, because if the ultra orthodox have to go fight, they're going to pull out of the coalition. He's not going to be able to hold the coalition together. He doesn't have a majority in parliament, so that's going to happen. Then we've got this constitutional issue going on about whether he can. Well, he's got several constitutional issues. Let's just say
a lot.
He's facing several indictments. He's violated the Constitution several times on his trying to rewire the judiciary and gotten beat back by the Supreme Court on that too. He's got people marching in the streets, camping out in front of the parliament. This is a bad spot for Benjamin Netanyahu to be in. And for the longest time, his best and only friend has been the United States. And now we're not there. And we're not there for him.
Yes.
And I think this is a very masterful thing by the Biden people, and to some extent by the British, that they're beginning to drive a bit of a wedge. They've already had a hard time explaining that the Israeli government isn't the Israeli people. But if they can drive a wedge between Netanyahu and the government and just say, my problem is with Netanyahu and not even with the Israeli state or the Israeli government, now it becomes an easier way to sell this. Look, the problem isn't the war necessarily, it's who's running it.
Right.
Get rid of Netanyahu and we will insert thing here. All of this is happening while at the same time, they seem to be beating a bit of a retreat. The Israelis have removed tens of thousands of troops from the Gaza Strip. They're down to about 10,000. They've opened up another aid crossing. They've got 400 trucks a day going in, which is still not even close to like a tenth of what's necessary. And Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is talking about flooding the zone with development, which is what we on this show talked about as a solution for a lasting peace in Israel, which is, if you got to bulldoze the place, replace it with something better.
Right.
So go ahead, bulldoze Gaza, kill 35,000 people or more. I guess we, the people of the rest of the world, would just sort of like live with that. Well, yeah, it's fine. It's what the Israelis do. If they build it back into a functional, operable, democratically elected or something stable state where people make money and people have lives, and people are safe and the kids go to school and they make a basketball team that gets to the Olympics or something, people will forgive and forget that 35,000 people like that.
Or they won't. I think what they'll do is they will blame it on. They will say we were like, again, they'll blame it on an individual,
right?
And that individual will be Netanyahu and whoever is able to kind of grasp this, because if you don't do this, again, this is the definition of insanity, and like the state of Israel will still be under they're still going to be under the same like threat, because again, what's going to happen is if you leave it that way, you're only going to breed resentment to a new generation. And what the opportunity you hope is that with a new the generation, again, they might never they'll never forget what happened to again these women and children. They'll never, because that's what it is. It's like, all right, Hamas is, and I think that's what everybody says. It's like, all right, if you're gonna go get Hamas, and fine, but to raise the whole place, right? What do you how do we get here? What are you actually doing? And that's why, again, genocide. Again, for any other criteria, people are calling it that because also too, we're not. Mind you, raise the place and made people move south, but then you're not letting the food has to come in as well too. Right? If you let that other piece happen too, we might not be having this conversation. It's like, yo, we raised it, we sent all these people south, but we're trying to get as much food as happening. We're not targeting again, and I'm not saying that there's a miscommunication, right, between what troops who are controlling the drone strikes that hit the World Central Kitchen trucks and the government based on the response, right? So I say all that to say is that hopefully this ends soon and we're able to again move forward, because with any of these conflicts around the world, right? I think if we look to whether it's Bosnia or any, there has to be an end, right? Rwanda, all these things, there's an end of something, right? And it depends on the end. What is the direction that we go in after that? And the United States has to be obligated to kind of help guide that direction. And the only way you guide this direction is a change in the leadership in Israel. That's it. Because again, right? Why would Bibi stop this right now?
He doesn't want to, obviously.
Right, he doesn't want to.
He wants to keep this war going because the second it ends, the elections are going to get called and he's going to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Netanyahu's been in power since the late 90s.
Right.
Okay. We got a problem here where you just keep cycling. It's insert opposition politician versus Netanyahu. There's a generation of Israelis who only have known Benjamin Netanyahu as their leader. And he's never been popular. He's never been able to win an outright majority. He always has to depend on these weird coalitions, some of which, sometimes he's coalitions with the opposition, and sometimes he's coalition. It's the guy is unmoored. He doesn't have any real political agenda apart from himself.
Yeah.
But the opportunity to get this right in the aftermath of what is so wrong is pretty grand, provided that people are thoughtful about it. That's the most critical.
Right.
That there's a lot of buy-in from the rest of the world, including the Arab world. The Arab world has to get involved in a constructive way, not in a way that undermines this. And somebody has to lock these settler idiots up and keep them from making things worse, because they are still out here in the midst of all of this war.
Yeah.
People didn't even really notice it.
No,
Israel
you're right.
Annexed a whole bunch more territory in the West Bank. That's not even where the
war is happening. Yeah.
They're just merrily moving ahead with their plan to snatch other people's territory. And that is a thing that we are hollering about in Ukraine. How dare the Russians snatch up this territory? How dare Trump try to end the war by telling the Ukrainians to just take the L and give up the territory? You would never do that. Nobody would ever do that. People are in arguments with their neighbors over a couple of inches of their property line.
Yes.
You would never tolerate this. nobody would tolerate this. And here we are. It's a little similar to the Iranians, that we're in this part of the world where like the Israelis are so volatile and so unpredictably dangerous and so disproportionate in the way they behave that you tell Iran, hey, look, I know you lost a lot of important people and those families are dead and all that stuff. You got to take your L on this one, man, because the alternative is fucking nuclear war. Like,
and I think
the Israelis are out here shaking around such a giant saber that they're just got, everybody is like, just give them what they want, man, and make them go away. And that can't be us. We can't.
We are the checkmate on that. Like, we are the checkmate.
We have to be.
We have to be. And there's only one person who's, I think, has the ability to do that at this point. It's definitely not this other. And as much as people are frustrated, like with, I think, Biden's initial response, to me, like I could have told, like, if someone had asked me, like, hey, this is gonna happen in October, and what do you think the response is going to be from Joe Biden? I'm like, well, he's been consistent for 100,000 years. I'm just joking, but like, no,
it's true. He was there at the Exodus.
He's been consistent with like how he feels about.
I'm not kidding around.
I'm not kidding around. He feels like, but at a certain point, like, how do we move forward? And I don't think it's the person who inflamed some of this.
Oh, certainly not.
Yeah, it can't be Donald Trump. I mean, like, he's had many, like, right, for like garnering support from, again, the crazy evangelicals who love Israel because they secretly want to get everything. We kind of know why they love it, because they're waiting for the big time where everybody they can come in, swoop in, and take everything. Right? But that move, the move of the embassy, right? Something that didn't have to happen. That's like, yo, like, we kind of, there's certain things we don't do, right? But there's certain things we don't do every now and then, just to, like, try to just keep everybody like at zero for a second.
Let's be clear that an Arab protest vote for Trump does not help your cause.
That's the thing.
And I think that, I don't think there's anybody in America, Arab or otherwise, who thinks that does help their cause. I think they know better.
Yeah.
I think they just want the attention. And I from Biden, which they've got.
Yeah, they got that. That's there.
When this started, we sort of talked about how there's like a general playbook to how this goes, right?
Yeah.
Is the Hamas will attack. The Israelis will have a wildly disproportionate response. They'll do something crazy. We will let them do it for a little while, and then we will tell them quietly with a back channel, hey, you guys need to knock it off. They will find some reason to say that they've completed their mission, and they will back off, and then things will go back to how they were. That's what we talked about on the show. I think what my error was, I vastly miscalculated where that line was.
The line is crazy.
I thought it was much lower than where it is. Apparently the American line for Palestinian death is much, much higher than I expected it to be, which is depressing.
It's jarring, I think, to the country.
But I'm going to say something that I think is true, but probably not super palatable. We are following that exact playbook, albeit stretched out. And I think, given the amount of rage and anger and retribution that the Israeli public wanted to enact against the perpetrators of October 7th, you had to have somebody like Joe Biden who is going to be overly steadfast in his support for Israel in a way that doesn't necessarily match with the American public's perspective.
Right.
Long enough so that when the message does need to be, all right, guys, you killed enough of them, knock it off, it's coming from a voice that they will listen to. And Joe Biden has the track record with Israel going back to the 50s. Okay. Joe Biden has the track record to say to all of the Israeli politicians, all of which he knows by name and has been to their houses. All right, guys, this is enough. Find a way out of it and call it off. I gave you that cover. I let you kill all those people. I didn't go out and tell but my people are mad. I'm mad. We've gone too far. It's got to stop. If that had been coming from somebody like Hillary, they would have listened to her.
It should have. That's one part, but like again, that should be it because this is the Secretary of State who's been around. Like it should be that.
But Hillary and her husband Bill Jeff, like their history with Israel was about making the deal, and it was about Rabin and Arafat and all of that stuff.
Right.
Biden goes back 30 years before that.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's a thing where he has
the trusted voice.
He has the credibility to actually deliver the whoa. And did it have to go so far before they would listen to the whoa? Apparently that's where the line is. Yeah. I'm heartbroken and terribly ashamed to find out, as both an American and as a Jew, that this is where we had to let this go before we could put a stop to it. But the opportunity exists if they can get it right, if they can rebuild, if they can develop and create a stable Palestinian state with full recognition, with Arab support in a safe and economically viable way. 100 years from now, people will call this Netanyahu's catastrophe, and it'll all wash away.
We have to try to get there. I mean, this is the opportunity to do that. I don't know what the alternative is, because
the alternative is rinse and repeat.
Exactly.
If you don't do that, if you don't come up with a stable Palestine, you will be doing this exact thing forever.
Yeah.
Forever. Because there'll always be this point of conflict.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, story.
You want to do a Tez talk?
Yeah. To get even sadder, right?
Oh, good.
This one comes out of Axios. I think it comes out this morning here. It's an exclusive poll, right? And I'll just read the title from it. Like, Latino support for border wall and deportations jump. Right. And it's just around like the percentage of Latinos who say that they'll support building a border wall and deporting all undocumented immigrants.
They're Cubans and Venezuelans.
Okay, of course. Well, I didn't even let me get there. But yes, okay. Right. But yes, right. It's jumped 10 points, right, since 2021. And this is a Axios, Ipsos, and Telemundo poll, I believe, that they ended up doing this with. And it's just interesting to something that we really have this build a wall thing, this mass deportations comes out of 2016, comes from President Trump. And it's interesting to have that it's registering with folks who probably have ties to immigration. And it's just a really wild thing. And it's just like, even for immigrants who are here, this type of rhetoric almost has them almost coming out of their own skin and kind of thinking in a sense hey, well, no, they shouldn't be here. And I think another piece of this, right, is Trump's plan for this, right? He wants to deport somewhere close to 1 million people, whether they've been here forever or whether they're citizens, whoever they are, right? It doesn't matter, right? That's his kind of thing that he's trying to do.
He's like, right? You look brown, gotta go.
Get the hell out of here.
Didn't he say he wanted people from white smart countries? What are all these
exactly.
countries?
Yeah, these are quotes from him. And these numbers are kind of interesting. By number, 42% of Latino adults surveyed said they support building a wall or fence along the entire U.S.-Mexico border, right? And that's 12-point jump from December 2021. You got 38% support sending all undocumented immigrants to the U.S. back to their country of origin. That's up 28%. Up from 28% in 2021. So another close 10-point jump there. In addition, 64% of Latinos say they support giving the president authority to shut the U.S. border if there's too many migrants trying to enter the country, right? And that's the first time the survey has ever asked that. Another, to your point earlier, and I also added this to my America in quotes, Support for building a wall was strongest among Cuban Americans, 58%, who generally are more conservative than many other Latinos and have benefited from decades of Cold War era, quote unquote, special treatment on immigration, right? So it's just kind of like, right? Like those individuals specifically benefited from, again, an ideological battle between Russia and the United States, right? And like, right, that again, they're here, but like this, like, it was just a shocking poll for me to read through earlier this morning, and I was just like, how do we get here? I think it also kind of can dictate, similar to Donald Trump's view on China and how some of those policies when Biden got elected, he wasn't quick to kind of remove, right? Because he was just kind of like, all right, well, Donald Trump moved the needle where like you can kind of have a different viewpoint on things and not be as extreme, but it can be palatable for folks. And I just wonder, maybe like, are we here with immigration? Which again, as I was talking to Ye about this earlier, I was like, I don't get it. I'm just like, whether like going into the next 50 years, whether having a strong army, having a strong workforce, like that requires a population. And I think if you can get individuals into a very large country, this country's large, right? It's huge, right? If you can get them here, right? And let's just say we want to even go like semi-draconians, like, hey, you want to come here? We can expedite it if you do like a year of service, right? Like there's ways we could get creative with this, but it's something that's used as a way to get people to elections, right? It's like, it's one of these things to get to do voter turnout. And it's like, I don't like, there's the reason that this country right now is doing well comparatively to other people is due to immigration.
Yeah, CBO's recent score, they revised it up. They said that immigrants are going to be responsible for $7 trillion worth of economic activity over the next 10 years. They said that
start hating money.
They
when do we start
taxes in a much higher percentage, and that they tend to be the unemployment rate amongst immigrant communities tends to be much lower, because
they're out there Republican voters is also what this tells me.
And they're overwhelmingly religious, and they should all be Republicans. But I mean, one of the things that I always sort of ask is about these Cubans in particular is, do they think that they're not that they're white?
Yes.
And do they think that when there's a point where the white supremacists are going to be like, nah, those ones are okay? I don't.
I think though the Cuban population, specifically these folks in South Florida, I think they could cosplay in some of these white supremacists, like where the white supremacists like, oh, I didn't know they made them that way. Like,
yeah, I but okay, this is crossing several lines here, but I'm sure I've told you and I've told everybody that I had several conversations with noted racist and now dead mass murderer Glenn Miller, who ran for Senate in Missouri and gave out his phone number as part of doing so. And so I had his phone number, and I would call him on occasion to ask him random questions and listen to him rant about crazy white supremacist stuff, which I thought was funny. And then it turned out maybe I was contributing to his radicalization. So sorry.
We all make mistakes.
One of the things I asked him one time under the guise that I was forming a all white club, was we had this guy who wanted to join, whose name was Tito Martinez. Could he join or not? And what Glenn Miller told me was, he says, does he look white and does he act white?
No, he's Filipino.
And I said, yeah. And I said, yes. And he said, well, then he's in. And I was like, I was pretty shocked by that. It was a remarkable level of tolerance, from a Klansman who was willing to let in a white Spanish guy. And so maybe that's what they're banking on, but I don't think
they got the same radio, but it's in different language.
Yeah. I know. I listen to Spanish language talk radio, and especially the white supremacist version of it, which is wild to listen to.
I mean, because there's what the FCC can only do stuff in English, right?
Yeah, the FCC doesn't pay attention in Spanish. I'm sure it's on. I hear other languages on the radio too, and I'm sure there's other things going on, but I only speak Spanish, and it is some wild stuff. But I just, what's confounding to me about this is that the policy that we had about the Cubans was, okay, they're fleeing Castro, and so we should make exceptions for them and give them, a path, and that's what created this sort of Cuban exceptionalism and all that stuff.
Right.
But the same thing is true of the people fleeing Chavez in Venezuela, but for some reason, the Chavista name has stuck to them in a way that the refugee thing isn't, so when Cubans were fleeing Castro, they were good capitalists fleeing communism, but when literal, the best and the brightest of Venezuela business owners are fleeing literal communism, they're considered, oh, well, they're all part of Chavez's invasion. God bless Ronald Reagan. I feel bad for him. He's got to see all this, from his spot in hell. But it's like the level of racism here is just shocking. I mean, why are you doing this, guys?
I mean, I think right, because once you assimilate into American culture, like if you're not black, why would you be anything else? Why would
Ted Cruz is white. Ted Cruz thinks he's white. He acts white. He tells everybody he's white. He's not white.
Yeah, he's not.
Raphael.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I found that poll to be very interesting. I think, and that's a huge voting block in this country. It'll be one of the bigger ones soon. And like just right, like Latino vote in general. Listening to like some of their not like. I don't know why they just don't flood it. Like you thought when they say that migrants are going to come here and start voting for Democrats, I'm like, they got this messed up. They got it really messed up. Maybe this works out in the long run. Maybe this actually, as I think through this, maybe it works out in the long run. Because I'm like, oh my, you guys are. This could be a huge.
It so far hasn't necessarily panned out that way.
Right. Exactly.
Speaking of things that don't pan out, Donald Trump has the worst lawyers on the planet. You know that he likes to hire the best people, only the best people. Many people are saying. As you know, his trial starts next week.
Yeah.
In that trial, he's basically accused of election interference, which is a very important thing that the judge made clear in sort of refining the charges and making sure that everybody understands. It's not just that he paid off Stormy Daniels.
Yeah. We don't care about that.
With a check and lied about it. It's that he did it in furtherance of trying to sway the electorate.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And so that's what he's going to trial for. So in the case here, he's tried everything he can to delay this, and he's filed motion after motion. I don't like the judge's hair. It's not fair that his daughter, exists. I don't, you gagged me. I'm not allowed to be gagged. I got a doctor. He's, Ronnie Jackson gave me a pill. I don't know, whatever. And in the middle of all of this, we get this incredible story, which I'm going to read to you as it comes to us from ABC News. There are multiple Jeremy Rosenbergs in New York City. Of course there are. As former President Donald Trump's attorney found out Tuesday after they sent a subpoena to the wrong one.
Insane.
Last month, Trump's attorneys in his criminal hush money case in Manhattan sought to subpoena the Jeremy Rosenberg, who was a supervising investigator in the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Now, you'd think this would be an easy one, right? Because you know where he works, and you can get all the information, and he's a lawyer, and he's got a bar card and all that stuff, right?
Should be easy.
Instead, according to court filings revealed Tuesday, the subpoena went to another Jeremy Rosenberg who lived in an $8 million Brooklyn home, doing fairly well. Way to go, Jeremy. Quote, I don't have any files for you, that Rosenberg wrote to the defense attorney, per the court filings. Furthermore, the incorrect Rosenberg wrote, quote, I'm keeping the $15 Blanchard provided to help him pay the cost of sending the requested documents. That's a particularly good fuck you to Donald Trump, right? Because that $15.
Needs it.
I want that $15 back. The guy he stole $15 from me is very, very low rate. Nobody's heard of him. Jeremy Rosenberg.
He stole 15, just the same way the New York State is trying to take my money. Everyone's trying to take my money.
Part of the corrupt globalist. Prosecutors informed the court that was not the Jeremy Rosenberg Trump's legal team was looking for after Todd Blanche's lawyer complained that Rosenberg was not being cooperative. Well, no shit.
I'm not him.
Quote, after receiving defendant's pre-motion letter, the people spoke with Mr. Rosenberg's counsel, who informed the people that Mr. Rosenberg was not, in fact, served with the subpoena, that Mr. Rosenberg had not corresponded with defense counsel, and that Mr. Rosenberg does not have any connection to the Brooklyn address where the subpoena purportedly was served. Only the best people.
Idiots.
Just great.
Idiots.
Can't wait for this trial. It's going to be so good. We're off next week, by the way, so it's going to be really funny. You guys are going to just have to watch it without us.
And then we'll be back.
We'll be back, we promise. Speaking of dumb Trump lawyers, Rudy. Okay. Oh, Jesus, Brian. You got to warn us before you do something like that. Okay. Rudy Giuliani, I think he has a podcast or something still.
Everyone has a podcast.
Yeah, I know. They let these two idiots do the show.
Exactly.
So he had some platform where he was speaking after the earthquake that happened in the New Jersey area. And he said the thing that we're all waiting to hear one of these Republicans say, well, under Trump, there weren't any earthquakes in New York. And then, or whatever. Joe Biden released the earthquake. It's the space laser. Now, he went even dumber. He said, quote, the communist states are getting earthquakes. Suggested that he means, quote, somebody is sending us a message after the rare earthquake hit the tri-state area there. I guess he means California and New Jersey? I don't know.
No one understands the meaning of communism anymore. It's just
the way. Quote, we are in the communist state of New York, and then we were in Connecticut, and we just escaped all the earthquakes. Then we got to Massachusetts, which probably had some earthquakes. Oh, good. He's just guessing. And we got to New Hampshire, where there were no earthquakes, which is telling me that somebody's sending us a message. Good Lord, Rudy.
Communist New York, the home of Wall Street.
Right.
The home of JP Chase. What?
Yeah.
We can't. We got to understand. I don't even think we've changed the definition of communism. People just don't know what it means.
They don't know what it means. They never knew what it meant, apparently.
Okay,
but here's the thing, right? You and I are known to imbibe on a case, right? All right. So we're kind of experts at that. And so let's give Rudy the benefit of the doubt that he was just hammer time drunk.
True. Yeah.
At your drunkest, could you possibly consider
blaming the communists?
Saying something that stupid?
No, I'd be probably trying to explain communism to somebody.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, look, you got to understand why they thought it would work.
Right,
If
the means of production belong to the people,
agrarian societies, they weren't ready. It's crazy. They didn't understand what was coming for them. They didn't get it. They didn't understand technology.
People are belligerent drunks, and you and I are like professorial drunks.
That's what I would be saying. But again, in theory, think about this in theory and how it could captivate, like a strong man gets behind this and captivates it. Look, I understand how these feeble-minded people got get it. Sorry.
All right, so our last story is a sports story, but before we get to that, I do want to show you, these are the things that I got from my trip. So all of the Evertonians, we got together.
Oh God!
And I don't know if you can see this.
You don't know what you're doing with the Premier League lion on the front.
So we all held these up while we took our big photo together there at the Fan Fest.
Some grassroots rebels right
here. After the yet another point deduction for the exact same thing that they already deducted our points for, which, to be clear, isn't cheating. There's nobody doing anything sneaky here. 777, the group that is about to buy Everton, is loaning Everton a bunch of money. Everton owes that money nominally back to 777. But as soon as 777 signs the papers that they own the team, they will no longer be owed any money because it's their own money. So it's not real debt if it's just your own money.
Financial fair play.
And the Premier League has admitted they're not even sure how they're coming up with these penalties when they go to the appeals. They're like, we don't even know where this number came from. We just kind of guessed. So, like, they're inept at the highest. Go punish City, you idiots.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing I got for free in anticipation of needing a backup is a new scarf for the Washington football team East.
Crystal Palace,
which is owned by Josh Harris.
Yeah.
So this is Washington football team London.
One of my cousins lives very close to this pitch.
They even brought a few of their own bald eagles to the event, which I did not think was a very, very nice thing to do to these poor bald eagles. Be there like but early in the morning with a bunch of drunk soccer fans all wanting to pet them or something. Don't try to pet an eagle.
Please leave it alone.
That thing wants to kill you, and it can.
Eagle nest can weigh up to 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And they're mean. Eagles, they look friendly on a quarter. They're not.
Oh, no. One of the Ron McGill, who most people have seen, like on ABC, Miami Zoo, he always says that the eagle is it's a bird with a good PR game because, like, it'll eat anything, it'll go and attack. Like, it's great. It has a great PR team, man.
Yeah, they're violent, vicious dinosaurs that
exactly
we have to put on our money.
Yeah,
which makes no sense. But also, don't pet the eagle.
Don't pet the eagles. Or the buffalo.
Don't do that either. Just, generally hands to yourselves.
Leave the animals alone.
Leave that alone. Speaking of hands, though.
Yeah.
Basketball, right? Crazy. So the Final Fours just wrapped up.
Yeah.
There was what's it called? Men's game. And then also the actual Final Four that everybody was watching, which was South Carolina versus Iowa. That was the final there between the Gamecocks and the Hawkeyes. So, again, more birds and lots of birds of prey and all kinds of things.
Can you have a lady Gamecock?
Yeah, that's what they're called. They're just called the South Carolina Gamecocks. Like,
okay. No.
I think we're done. Like, Esther Chamakili was on about, like, oh, look at women's sports doing this. And I was like, I don't think we can just call it sports. Like, it's just women's basketball. But it's not women's sports. It's sports. Just happens to be women playing it. All right. But the story here anyway is that the women's game drew more ratings by a lot than the men's game. Now, to be fair, I think a lot of people expected UConn to absolutely steamroll Purdue, which they did, because UConn men's team is a buzzsaw, and you're just hoping and praying to make it and not get beat by 25 if you play them. But, the UConn women, they weren't bad either. And what we saw this year for the first time ever, because I went back and checked, is that there were two schools that made it to both the men's and women's.
Yes.
The UConn and NC State.
Yep.
Both UConn and NC State sent a team to the men's. Both UConn and NC State sent a team to the women's. And that's never happened before. So altogether, great tournament, lots of fun, good basketball all the way around, lots of great characters. DJ Burns, everybody loves him. He's, fun, happy, giant guy, with an incredible drop step. Zach Edey, way too intense, got his ass kicked, and good for him. It's we got all of that, but we got the Angel Reese Caitlin Clark showdown, and we got to have the Iowa South Carolina big match that everybody wanted, and of course Don Staley's Gamecocks just massacred them. I mean, there's just no way.
So anybody who did not pick them to win, okay, in the women's brackets, that I was like, all right, well, I know this to be true of who's gonna be in this and who's gonna win it. I just got to figure out the score, and hopefully I get close. Like I will get close enough to win it, because everybody's picking South Carolina.
So Brian is actually involved in sports television production and stuff like that. Having these numbers be higher for the women than for the men, what is that like, Brian?
It's one, good for the women's game, especially in the last decade or so. I mean, what kind of helped women's basketball was the women's national basketball team back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
That made the interest look, oh, look at these women, because again, the men's game was like pretty like what it is now in the men's college basketball. It's kind of boring because it's like you already know who's going to win. I think with women, the women's game is it's been competitive, and now some of the prime teams, the prime stars back in the 90s, they've retired, they're coaching or what have you, and you had that wane period during the 2000s, but now with Caitlin and Angela, they kind of like be the new Bird and Magic, combo, so to speak, or rival that you kind of want in a sport. And already, Caitlin Clark is destined to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft in a few weeks. And, the Indiana Fever, who's got the number one pick, they pretty much sold out all their tickets because of her. That's the thing. And I think again, how college sports should be is like, if you have a really top-notch player who you've been following for so long and is going to the pros, it will help the pro team in some form or fashion, wherever team they're going to. I think the other aspect of this is the fact of, sadly, is the hatred of it. If you know, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I recently heard a couple, I don't know what you want to call him, a sports commentator, but he dogged how Dawn Stanley, her appearance and how she believes and how he coaches and things of that nature. I've been hearing about how, Caitlin Clark's, really not the GOAT, but, based off of the numbers, she's been to 2 finals and never won it, but still she's got the numbers to back up that she's a really talented player. You don't really, to me, I kind of have this aspect of like, if a person who has never won a championship, but has the numbers to be a top-notch player, do you still consider not him being the GOAT because he doesn't have any titles? That's based off of your rhetoric.
That's crazy.
Well, no, we do. But see, here's the biggest issue around all of this, and why it's it's like a double-edged sword here, is that it seems to me that the women's game was kind of, and like, I'm not going to sit there and say I'm an aficionado around this, and I've watched a lot of women's basketball, watched some of it, but not huge. But from what it seems like from the outside is that this was an insular community that was doing really well. Like everybody knew, like people who knew, they knew about this, right? And they understood like what the game is. And for me, it seems like we have a lot of outside people, specific outside men, converging onto this sport now. And when you introduce this, the things you love about this sport is going to disappear. And that's kind of the double edge, where when the hype comes around it, which is it should, you're going to have people who don't understand it. And I think we're going to try to talk about this sport, and it's going to almost like, it's not going to, and what I hope that there's a counterbalance of specifically women who understand the kind of, and who've been there, right? Not the Johnny come latelys who are coming to the sport now, right? Which I think, right, you want to grow the game, but there has to be the balance of individuals who actually know the sport, who can tell these longer stories, right? Because, right, I think Caitlin Clark is just an amazing basketball player. But also, too, I know, like, women's basketball has been around for a while, and, like, just be talking about Dawn Staley. Like, think about who that is, right?
You remember when she was a player?
When she was a player, right? Like, let's talk about that. Like, or someone like a Cheryl Miller, right? Like this ain't like I had
100 and some odd points in a game.
I had a trading card because I was like, oh, she's insane. Or like Cheryl Swoops and like someone who had her own shoe line, right? Like it ain't like some of this stuff, like because again, people are new to it. Like
Lobo. There's so many of these great names. Here's a big thing about this. You're right that it does bring the threat essentially of a bunch of uninformed men to this, but I will say that in the chatter I have heard of people sort of casually discussing these games, they are discussing them the same way they casually discuss any basketball game.
Right.
That the vast majority of the men that I hear chattering away about this women's Final Four were it kind of didn't. It was just more basketball for them. There was nobody saying like, oh, it wasn't as good. It was just as good. If it was more exciting, it was better. And I will say that the way that the current NBA game is played more closely resembles the women's game for a long time. And so it's as if we as a basketball universe are all kind of walking slowly towards where women's basketball has been for a long time. A lot of outside shots, all threes, people who can make logo shots on a regular basis.
Very fluid, like passing, right?
Yeah, good passing and working to get those open outside shots. Nobody's like just trying to pound it and get those 2 points and a foul. Like it's not that anymore. The days of viewing and Olajuwon are over.
But I disagree with that. I think that's why I think the women's game is more interesting because of the fact that it's good fundamental basketball here. I
think the men are learning fundamentals the way that the women have always been doing.
Men are trying to create highlight reels. That is it. I've dealt with, based off, I've been dealing with college basketball for now over, too long. And 3 presidents, let's say that way. And the change of how basketball was more about fundamental and building, your not just the fan base, but also the sense of fact, building your school up to be trying to be contending for a conference championship to lead into the NCAAs. Now, thanks to, unfortunately, the transfer portal, the NILs and all that stuff. And it's both men and women, but for somehow the men, it's chaotic. And I've been hearing the rumbles where,
of course,
this, I don't know how this end of the year will be, but it is not looking good for the men's side compared to the women. The women is, I think they kind of established themselves to, I think they'll be okay, to where there won't be a lot of, notable names going to other bigger schools just to get notoriety, because pretty much you can tell how, Iowa, they'll probably drop down a little bit, depending on how things go. But based off of some of the other schools that you kind of fear, like, UConn can reestablish itself.
Oh, the dynastic teams are all still there, but I think that they're using the NIL to build teams, whereas I think in the men's game sometimes it's too much about the individual.
It's always about individuals. The thing is here.
Wait till you see how much slush fund they give Calipari in Arkansas, and see what he does when he uses NIL to buy a team. He can do it, and that'll set the mold.
But is there an issue though? You say right about individuals instead of the teams. Do we look at LSU? Do we look at Iowa and say that these are about individuals? Right? Well, these teams
LSU is a dynastic force.
Oh well, yeah. But even that, is it about the team or is it about their head coach in a sense? Like
it's about the coach.
It's about the coach, right? We need for this to continue on, though, especially in college, right? I think you need it to be about the teams. Like you almost need there to be another person who comes, like Iowa is always able to have, not a Caitlin Clark, but someone who is able to drive like the pageantry around Iowa.
Yes, you need, but look, it's Duke all over again, right? There's people who are generational Duke fans. They're none of them Grant Hill fans or Christian Laettner fans or any of or Kyrie Irving fans. They're Coach K fans. That's who they were. Okay. So it was about the coach and it was about the program, and he was going to be able to recruit. Dawn Staley is never going to have a problem recruiting.
No.
Every living room she sits in, she's going to get her player every single time. And the same thing with Mulkey. She's never going to have a problem. She's going to walk into any kind of house and say, I want you to play guard for me. And that kid is going to sign on the line. And there are going to be other programs. UConn is that right? Yeah. At Summit was that. There are going to be, and now there's more of them. Well, it used to be a very small handful, but we have dynasties in college basketball on the men's side that we're also used to. We know that Duke is always going to be there. We know that MSU is going to be there. We know that UNC is going to be there. We know Kentucky is going to be there. We know about those things. We now have the same equivalent on the women's side, and the gameplay is getting the attention that it deserves as people start to, I think, as the game gets more challenging and interesting, because it's about getting that outside shot.
Well, true, but the other thing is like you just said about the coaches that we knew, they're retiring, they're leaving this new NIL era. They don't want to deal with it. Calipari just found out he was let go from Kentucky.
Right, because Arkansas gave him like $150 million.
Yeah, but Kentucky was tired of shit too. He's done.
Yeah, Tyson family bought him.
Coaches, they don't, even men's coaches, they don't stick around long enough to try to build something. Calipari's been in Kentucky for almost a decade, and he couldn't do anything there. I mean, because again, a lot of guys keep going in and out, like one and dones, and that's kind of unfortunate. I think with the women game, you do see schools build up. They do follow the coaches. I mean, a lot of the coaches stick around for a lot longer because knowing full well it's like, they're trying to build something here. And
the other big irony is that you can make more money at NIL in college as a woman player than you can with a top salary in the WNBA.
Yeah. And Larissa is she has a higher salary than Candace Parker right now.
Yeah, and Juju said that too. She was like, "I'm not leaving. I need to make this money while I can still stay in college," and she's right.
Yeah. Well, now she's going to the WNBA.
Juju said she's declaring.
Yeah, she declared 2 weeks ago. So
I thought she was sticking around.
So Caitlin Clark and Reese are going to be WNBA rivals for a while.
And that's good for the WNBA, I think, overall. Back to the whole thing, like, if this is able, and like, it's weird too now where we're at as a country, like, we can't even talk. Like, it almost feels like we can't bring in the race factor of this, which is kind of in a weird fact, like I feel like with Magic and Bird, like that was a piece of like that was huge. Like it was one of the, like that played into it, and it's gonna play in no matter what. But it almost feels like we're disingenuous about this. Like, wait, we can't talk about the race aspect in America. Oh, what? No one wants to have this conversation.
Not in Florida, you can't.
Not in Florida. What are we doing? Like, I mean, because that plays into it, right? America wants in men's or women, they want that white American star, and it's good for basketball. I think it's good when you have that on there, because again, we got the monopoly on basketball. We ain't worried about losing it either. But what it is that, especially in the women's game too, like the black women who have been able to who created what is women's like basketball. To be honest, like that's solidified. We don't to talk about it. We could go down the list of individuals. I think what you have with the white star is then it opens the eyes to some of the rest of the country. And then this now brings this becomes bigger. But then everybody's like, now you want to make it about race. It's always been about race.
It's always about race. I think because you're talking about, gender and race at the same time. Audience, and I don't know how. I know that's not a thing I normally would say, and I'm not backing down from the conversation by any stretch. But
we didn't hear what you said, so it didn't even happen.
Brian muted me.
No, he didn't mute you. It was a technical difficulty. Say what you said before one more time so people can hear it.
Because it's a gender issue and a race issue, it might make more sense to sort of pick one to sort first and then bring the other one along. Because if you try to make it too intersectional, you lose a lot of your audience, and it gets too complicated.
Yeah.
I think the people who know that it's also that this is a racial justice issue and just sort of a visibility thing when it comes to race, we already know it. We're watching that. We're paying attention to this. Why all of a sudden Caitlin Clark comes on and now we're out pacing the viewership. That's all true. But it's also true that we've got more stars and better players than we've ever had before, and that the spotlight is brighter, and these women are successful and entertaining and interesting in ways that men have not given them credit for in the past. Not that they haven't been,
Right.
but that men haven't given them credit for.
Right.
And so let's take our win where we've got it. I'm not preaching incrementalism, and I'm not that thing, and we all know that, but let's be proud that this country actually paid more attention to a women's sporting event. There you go, Esther. Than we did to a men's sporting event. And one day when we're all watching men's football on Sunday, we can all be like, yeah, did you see the men's football game? And we'll be like, no, but I was watching the women's football game on Saturday or whatever.
Yeah, DC Divas coming soon.
Right, DC Divas are coming. Their new season's starting. You know, I mean, in other countries, they don't have this problem. So it's nice. For
Arsenal women drew the biggest crowd. Like, that
you
folks
watch
never seen
soccer in Britain all day long.
Yeah,
it's just like it's on, you know, and it's not called, you know, anything special. It's just like women soccer.
Yeah.
It's just soccer. They watch it, and rugby, and Gaelic football, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
They just watch it because it's on. It's sports. So anyway, okay, you hear that music? That's our new theme song that I wrote. Or no, wait, this is the one that Early Bird wrote, right? I don't know, whatever. The robot wrote it.
Exactly. Yeah, I wrote it. That was the Allen Iverson.
All right, which means we've come to the end of the show. We want to say thank you to our radio partners, Wendy's, Burger King, and Roy Rogers. Thank you to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, we assume, although we haven't checked. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as Gunnar Henderson's mustache. All right. Where can everybody get you on the social medias and stuff there, Tez?
You can find me on Instagram at CatchemCorder. You can find me on that hellscape that is X, giving you unsolicited baseball takes at DC Cortez. And you can find me, as always, being a flaming liberal on Blue Sky at DC Cortez.
And Brian, where can everybody get you in your sports show?
No Filter Sports. It's no_filter_sports_2.5. And a new episode will be coming soon. It will be the post NFL draft. So a lot of bringing back Trump to talk about that. And
the good one.
The good one, and some other stuff to talk about. So be on the lookout for that new episode in the coming weeks.
Going to be exciting. All right. And you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night, except not next Thursday night, here on Beltway Radio and beyond at 9:30. I'm Chip. That's Tez. That was Brian. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Abolish drafts.
That's what Chip and Tez will help you out. Let you know